Hey, family, it is your girl, Rose Johnson, with the Spotlight DMV. And today's guest is the definition of resilience, reinvention, and realness.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la. She has taken the word grandiose, once used to label her behind prison walls, and transformed it into an empire. I'm talking about the powerhouse behind Grandiosity events and Le Grand Caviar, Miss Susan Smallwood. She is showing us what it truly means to rise. Welcome to the spotlight.
Grandest thanks, Rose, and thank you for inviting me.
I'm so excited to have you here. You know, my good friend Joy is who introduced
That's
us,
right.
and she could not stop singing praises about you and how you giving her an opportunity is what made her who she is today. And guys, if y'all don't know who Joy is, she just won an award for Best Photographer for Women in Sport. Congratulations, Joy.
Yes, grandest. I didn't even know that. Grandiose,
Yes.
she's gonna be tonight at the Champagne and Caviar.
Yes, she was asking me if I was going to be there. So while we're talking about it, let's just tell the folks what that is. What is the Champagne and Caviar?
So the gathering spot, which is the largest Black-owned private members club, contracted me to do a chef's pairing this evening at the gathering spot in Washington, D.C. from 6:30 to 8:30. So I'm presenting my paddlefish caviar, which is out of the norm of what I typically market in on my platform. I typically market Royal Essential Caviar. So anyway, that's happening 6:30 to 8:30. So I'm sharing my backstory on how I started and the entire culture of caviar, unapologetically,
Wow.
unorthodox. Ooh la la.
Well, so let's get into that, talking about your backstory and sharing your backstory. And that is one thing that I have noticed about you. I've done a lot of research coming into this interview, and you have been very open and vulnerable with your journey to where you are today. And so, watching the interviews, honestly, it's unlike anything I've heard before. So, let's start at the beginning. When folks ask you, how did grandiosity begin? How do you answer that?
So it actually, what you said, you prefaced the interview with that. They called me grandiose in federal prison and haughty. And I consider myself fairly intelligent, but I didn't even know what those two words meant. So when I got over the initial shock of what it meant, I said, I'm naming my business Grandiosity when I come home.
Mm.
And I visualized that while I was in federal prison, that I was going to produce my first event at a private jet hangar. And I did. I manifested that while I was in prison. So
Wow.
while I was in prison, physically, mentally, I was not in prison.
Mm,
But
mhm.
prior to that, I was in mental prison for many, many years because of the mental health battles was that I endured.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because you did face a lot of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
abuse that you never gave up. And so, as a teen, you faced some trauma growing up. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about that.
Yeah, so my dad was a raging alcoholic. He was in the army. We were stationed well, we moved all over. I was born in Seoul, Korea. My mother is Korean. And we grew up in Germany and Belgium. So my dad was a raging alcoholic. He was very abusive to both my mother and myself. Although I have two siblings, they were not abused. So I was selected because my father didn't believe I was his child because I was born very pale with chinky eyes.
Mm.
Anyway, so he held that against me for whatever reason. And so fast forward, then he just took out all his anger on me and my mother for years. And when you're traumatized as a child, you like boundaries
Yeah.
and self love. So for years, I didn't know what boundaries meant. I didn't love myself. And I thought love was external. I thought it was another person. I thought it was a man. And I thought
Mhm.
it was material possessions. So I became materialistic. And I thought that my validation came from materialistic possessions. So I had to have the biggest, baddest, grandest, whatever it was. So I bought a house, 7,600 square foot home on 3 acres of land, fancy cars, jewelry, handbags, this, that, diamonds, furs, this, and that. I still wasn't happy. So
Mm-hmm.
that's proof in the pudding that material possessions does not bring you happiness.
Yeah, and you hear a lot of people talk about money does not bring happiness. And I understand that when you don't have money, it's kind of hard to understand that
Mhm.
concept.
Mhm.
But being someone that achieved all of those things and then still not being happy. So how did that lead you to prison?
So I was in a funk. I had lots of crying spells. And I knew I wasn't I said, "Oh my god, I bought the house thinking I was gonna be happy.
Yeah.
I bought everything, the luxury vehicles thinking I was gonna be happy, and everything that I got, everything, like I just said, the diamonds, the furs, and everything, and it didn't happen, so I said, "Well, I'm gonna move. I'm moving to New York, and I'm gonna live in a penthouse in New York, in Manhattan." And so I entered into a deal, and that's what ended me in federal prison because it was an illegal deal,
Mm,
conspiracy to distribute cocaine. So I ended up in federal prison, which now I reflect back because I said, God, the universe, angels, and ancestors always sit us down
yeah.
to get the message. Because if we don't get it one way, we're going to get it another way.
Yeah.
And that was my way because I moved so fast and I was headstrong.
Mhm.
That was
Mhm.
the only way the universe could sit me down and say, "You're gonna get it right now."
Wow, wow. And I can't even imagine that, to go from someone that could have whatever you want to now being confined to being in prison. So what was that like when you heard the judgment and they're like, you get what was your sentence?
It was scary. I was crying. For years, because I endured so much trauma and abuse, I didn't cry for years.
Mm,
And when I started having the flashbacks
mhm.
and I cried a river, it was because I held in everything. I did not seek help. And so that's the other thing, like, when you have experienced trauma, you need to seek help. So I didn't seek help, I held in everything, it festered. So when it festers, it manifests in different ways. And then when you're vulnerable, you don't think straight. So I
Yeah.
wasn't thinking straight. So when I entered into this illegal deal, I wasn't really in my right frame of mind. I was actually court ordered by the federal judge to go see a psychiatrist. And at that time, I was diagnosed with dysthymia, which is a functional depression. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what it was. So dysthymia, a lot of you may be experiencing this right now.
Yeah.
You're walking around, but you know something's off, but you're in a functional dysthymia. Like, you've heard of functional alcoholics,
Yeah.
functional dysthymia, functional. So anyway, what was the question? Because I went off around a little bit.
You were telling us about your experience in prison. You got the sentence, you cried. You
Yeah. So I cried the when they gave me the sentence, and I just said, You you the consequences. Your actions determine your consequences.
Mhm.
I did what I did, and I had to deal with the consequences.
Mm,
The other thought, I was thinking about committing suicide
wow.
because I did not want to go to prison. I could not fathom losing my freedom. The only thing, a lot of times, as my son is my saving grace. That's why I'm like, that would be selfish.
Yeah.
So that would be a cowardly move to commit suicide. So I had to face my consequences. And in me facing my consequences, I had to face me one on one in federal prison
Mm,
because I had to do in depth look at myself and understand why I am the way that I am. Why did I do what I did? So I learned metaphysics. Metaphysics is understanding the universe, which is God. Some people think it's not God. It is God. God made the universe. I understood, but it's deeper for me because then it went into generational curses,
Yeah.
which now I understand is called epigenetics, which I am breaking.
Yeah.
And we have to break generational curses, but it gets it's very deep. So they filmed my docu series, and there's a movie producer that's investing in my mini series. So it's a lot to explain right now. So we're going to do the short version here
Yeah.
because this is a short interview. All right.
Well, no, and so that's exactly it, right? You were in there and you faced something that made you have to look deeper into yourself
Mm-hmm.
because meeting you on the other side of this, right? I would have never looked at you and thought that you were someone that went through any of these things that you have gone through, trauma as a teen, abuse as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
ending up in federal prison. When I speak to you, you just exude positivity and happiness and joy. And that is not something that I would expect. So there was, like you're saying, you faced something that helped you face all those realities and change things about yourself. And then you were in there manifesting. You manifested now what is now your company, Grandiosity Events.
Events, absolutely.
So tell us about Grandiosity Events.
Yeah, so I literally said I'm producing an event at a private jet hangar when I come home. I was not coming out small, and so and the first event, but I had trepidation when I came home because people were whispering, the streets were talking this and that, and so I utilized someone to go and speak on my behalf, and then once I produced the event, they recognized it was me, and they actually wrote me up in their newsletter, Signature Flight Support Private Jet Hangar. So I'm grateful for that. And if y'all know, private jets aren't cheap, and to house a private jet is like housing a yacht at a marina. It's not cheap. So I executed my first, not just first two events at a private jet hangar, and then I went on into the world of polo, which is one of the most expensive sports in the world.
Yeah.
So we just executed our ninth annual Celebrity Polo and Jazz at the end of May. And the mayor of Dumfries, Virginia was so impressed that he is inviting me, Polo and Jazz, to Dumfries, Virginia, October 12th. Grandiosity Events is celebrating 10 years. Tomorrow, July 17th, will be 11 years since I was released from federal prison.
Wow.
Ooh,
Wow.
la, la.
La
Ooh,
la.
la, la. Ooh, la, la.
No, and I love that because you're not just throwing events. You're creating a space for healing,
Mm-hmm.
for joy, and cultural elevation. We're talking about polo, which in the past was something that was a sport for Black people
Mm-hmm.
because the jockeys were Black.
Yeah.
And then I don't know the full history, but some way, somehow we got away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was privileged enough to be able to be a part of the ninth annual Polo and Jazz Festival that took place in May. And it was just so amazing to be out there and to be a part of what you had going
Thank
on.
you.
And not just that, though, the people that were there, the same way that you're here and you're open and you're vulnerable. I got to speak to people on the red carpet and I saw inside their hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Like people were sharing very personal things because a part of this, right, is mental health
Yeah.
and being an advocate for mental
Mm-hmm.
health. So let's talk about your advocacy in the mental health space.
Yeah, so the last 3 years, actually this year we benefited a Baltimore Healthy Start, which is preventing infant mortality and maternal morbidity, which still it deals with mental health.
Yeah.
Because when you lose a child or someone loses someone that's giving pregnancy, that there is a mental health that you deal with. So the last 3 years, Grandiosity Events benefited Black Mental Health Alliance, which is the largest mental health agency on the East Coast with the most culturally competent practitioners. And it allowed me the courage to go on Fox 5, Washington, D.C. 3 years ago and share my own mental health journey. And I also had the courage to also tell the audience that I came home from federal prison. So in me sharing my narrative, I took my power back and I freed myself. So I was no longer in this mental prison. Even though I was out of physical prison, I was kind of still in a mental prison
Yeah.
because of people talking and stigmatizing me. Oh, her past, this and that. You get to the point and say, I don't give an F what y'all think. And then you just take your power back. And when you take your power back, the universe blesses you and catapults you to a grander stratospheric level.
Oh, amen to that.
Hmm.
And that is what the Spotlight DMV is all about, right? That we are sharing our own narratives, because if we allow other people to share the story, we might not like what they have to say about us. Therefore, we share it ourselves.
Hmm.
And like you said, you came to that place where you realized this was God.
Hmm.
God gave you a story, and not to keep to yourself, but to share with others, to inspire them, to allow them to also share their stories and be vulnerable. And so clearly you are not slowing down.
No.
You are going into, so May was the ninth year. And at that point for the Polo and Jazz event, you were not even sure you were going to get to the next
No, that was
year.
actually my grand finale.
Hmm.
And I was like, I'm moving out the country. I was preparing to move out the country and everything because I was like, the corporations fell out 2 years in a row, giving me dollars. And it's a six-figure event to produce. This is polo is one of the most expensive sports in the world. And so I was having challenges the last 2 years. And then I moved it to a whole new venue in Baltimore. That was a whole nother animal that I had to deal with. And then when the guests arrived, they were like, "Oh my grandness, ooh la la." It was on a water backdrop. Rose can attest to that.
Yeah.
Water is healing for me. So I don't know if it was the water. Everyone said it was a water. I don't know what it was, but it was a grandly beautiful event. And so as a result of that beautiness and the grand vibes, not we got a title sponsor, Dwayne King Law Offices, for next year, 6626, back at the Baltimore Peninsula. We have a 3-year, multi-year deal,
That's
which is a
awesome.
$5 billion complex. And K&I Healthcare Services is our corporate sponsor. K&I Healthcare Services specializes in mental health, and they have 3 offices here in the DMV area. So I'm really grateful. The universe blessed me to have perfect, beautiful angels that came to keep the legacy going.
Yes. Amen. Amen. And I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Dwayne King on the red carpet. And I already
Where's that
released.
interview, girl?
It's coming. It's coming after this one. So you guys are going to hear what Mr. King is all about, because he was amazing to speak to. And this is the thing that for me is the cherry on top, because you get into these spaces and everybody's dressed up and with their cigars. And if you don't know who you are, you might look at that and feel some type of way, right?
Mhm.
Being in that
Mhm.
space. But I talk to everybody. I love talking to people. And Mr. King is so down to he's so down to earth, and just very relatable, a very, very nice gentleman. So you guys are going to see that interview with Mr. King. I already released the interview with KNI Healthcare Services. Those are my peeps, Dr. EK and Kelvinda, amazing people. And so you also now, as you mentioned at the top, you have the Grand Caviar.
Mhm.
And so talk about that piece of it, about being a Black woman in the caviar.
Yes. So March 4th of 2020, I hosted my first caviar event at a newly opened caviar lounge at a hotel resort in Hollywood, Florida. At the time that I was seeking media materials, there were no images of Black people or people of color. And so I decided to change the complexion. I actually became an affiliate for a brand on the West Coast, and they actually gave me a raw deal. So after I'm now, this is my first time saying it publicly because I've never said it publicly, but yeah, they did give me a raw deal. So it was a chance meeting with 2 gentlemen in Washington D.C. They said, "Why are you promoting another caviar brand? Why don't you start your own?"
Mm.
And I launched my own caviar brand, Le Grande Caviar, June 12th of 2022 at the Baltimore Inner Harbor Marina with 2 of friends' boats, and the rest is history. We just celebrated 3 years last month. Tonight, I am celebrating champagne and caviar at, as I mentioned earlier, at the gathering spot doing a chef's pairing. Ooh, la, la.
So Grandiosity events, La Grande Caviar, community work that you do. What's next on the horizon for you, Steve?
Coterie Grand. Coterie Grand is a new platform. It's a luxury wellness platform, and luxury meaning it's a mindset, not about money. It's about it's a mindset. Rich is not about having more; it's about being more. And so that's what my platform is. You can manifest anything you desire in your life. I manifested my life. I went broke. I lost everything. I had to sell everything, and I literally went broke. I survived a horrible abusive relationship, and I literally built my brand with my mindset. No meds, with my mindset.
Mm.
Manifesting. When you believe in yourself and love yourself, and that's when the magic happened. That's called luxury. That is believing in yourself and not relying on external factors.
Yeah.
The power is already inside of you. The magic is already inside of us.
Oh, I love it. Healing your mindset is luxury.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Well, Susan, thank you. Thank you so much for your transparency, your creativity, and most of all, for your heart. Thank you for being on the spotlight today. And for anyone listening who feels like it is too late to start over, Susan has shown us that not only can you start over, but you can do it grand. Susan, tell the folks where they can find you on social media.
On Facebook and IG, you can find, and TikTok, at Grandiosity Events and La Grande Caviar.
I will make sure I link all of her information. Thank you again, Susan.
Grandest thanks, Rose. Have a grand day.
Thank
Ooh
you
la
so
la.
much.